The lawyer spoke in a low drone. His legal words washed over me, but I was left cold and empty. I strained my knuckles, which were white from clasping my hands, as I sat on a leather chair that reeked of money and dust. My sister, Evelyn, sat across the polished mahogany table. Not a single tear stained her face. Her expression was solemn, almost regal. The man's face was like the frayed parchment of a modern 12.12, and his name was Mr. Abernathy. He cleared his throat, which made a leaden sound in the death-like silence of the room. Therefore I leave my estate, including the family home at 142 Willow Creek Lane, all its contents, and the rest of my savings and investments, to my eldest daughter, Evelyn Hayes. He folded the paper. It sounded like a thick branch snapping in the winter frost. I waited. I was waiting for my name or mention or just some sentimental token. A piece of jewelry. A photograph. Anything that said, *I remember you, Sarah. I loved you. But there was nothing. Mr. Abernathy looked at me as if to say, I feel sorry for you. He read a small addendum that states, to my youngest daughter, Sarah Hayes, we leave my love and my hope that she finds peace. My love. The words were a cruel joke. A phantom inheritance. I felt the air leave my lungs, a slow, silent deflation. Evelyn finally looked at me and offered a practiced sad smile. She placed her perfectly manicured hand on my arm. The touch was cold. I'm so sorry, Sarah, she whispered. The tone in her voice is perfect. I had no idea. Mom likely had her reasons. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mom, the one who taught me how to make a loaf of bread, get over a broken heart, be a good person, etc., erased me. With just one single pen stroke she said my life, my sacrifice, and my love meant nothing at all. It wasn't always this way. Our home was not just bricks and mortar, but a living being that contained our unforgettable memories, including laughter, fights, and moments of love. The aroma of our mother's baking wafted through the air, scents of cinnamon, apple, lemon, and sugar. The dust motes shimmer brightly in the air, like little angels as sunlight filters through the old, wavy glass windows. Eleanor was the center of the family universe, 11 words. And my sister and I were different planets. Evelyn was grand and impressive, always drawing people in. The moment she could, she left our small town to build her career, marry a wealthy man, and have 2 perfect grandchildren. Her visits were big, with costly gifts and fascinating tales from her life before. Evelyn's mother would listen with pride as her daughter spoke about her promotion or her trip to Europe, smiling with glimmering eyes. I was Earth. Quiet, steady, always there. I never left. I taught at the village's primary school. I married a good man from our village. He died too soon. I lived 10 minutes from the house where I grew up. My life was a collection of small, quiet moments. Bringing Mom her groceries every Tuesday. In the evening, I liked to sit with her watching her old movies. I was in the garden with her, our hands in the same soil she loved to teach me. Evelyn loved Mom in declarations. I love those special words you say over the phone, birthday bouquets that shine brighter than each year, and fat Christmas checks that lighten my pocket. I loved Mom in deeds. In cups of tea brought to her bedside without being asked. In quiet company during the long, lonely evenings. While holding her hand, soft and thin as paper, in her last days. When Mom got sick, it was a slow, cruel fading. From 1,000 miles away, Evelyn would call, her voice tight with concern. Be sure she is taking her medication, Sarah. Have the doctors given you an update? Please hire a nurse. I'm sending a check to that effect. But I didn't hire a nurse. I took a leave of absence from my job. I have shifted to the guest room of the house on Willow Creek Lane. I was the one who learned the complex schedule of pills. I made soft foods she could eat since they were her favorites. I was there with her every night when she was scared, reading poems from her favorite books until her breathing evened into sleep. In those last few months, the house became my entire world. My mother and I had a quiet language that was in it. Sometimes she would reach out and pat my hand. She would whisper, "My good girl," in a thin, reedy voice. "My steady girl." I thought she saw me. I thought she understood. In intimate moments, stripped bare of the world's pretenses, she knew I was sure which of her daughters truly mattered to her. I had never thought of the will. I had never thought of the house. I had never thought of the money. I only thought about making her comfortable and holding on to whatever little time we had left. There was no world in which she could, after all, leave me with nothing but words. Until it did. After the funeral, Evelyn undergoes an instant change. She ruled the manor as the queen of the house on Willow Creek Lane. The sympathy she showed at the lawyer's office disappeared. In its place was a superb efficiency. "You're up to something, missus," I said. "No, I'm not," she replied, eyes flashing with amusement. "I have decided to take a few months off work to tidy up the house. It's just so overwhelming." She vaguely pointed to the living room, to our mother's furniture, which was simply comfortable and slightly worn down, but wasn't quite junk to throw away. I was still living in the guest room, a stranger in my own childhood home. I wasn't strong enough to go back to my small, empty apartment yet. I needed to be near the smell of my mother, the sound of her voice. But Evelyn was systematically erasing it. The initial indication that something was amiss beyond a specific nasty legacy was minor. It was a phone call. While I was in the kitchen making myself a cup of tea, I overheard Evelyn speaking in a low voice in the hallway. "No, Robert, it has to be now," she was saying, presumably to her spouse. "A perfect market is what I have, and I don't want complications. Sarah's still here and it's just awkward. I no longer want her here. I feel sorry for her, of course. But Mom was obvious. It's my responsibility now. Let's liquidate everything as soon as possible." Liquidate. The word hit me like a stone. She wasn't speaking of sifting teacups and old photographs. She was talking about selling the house, the heart of our family. The kitchen doorframe still had our height markings in pencil at the house. I backed away from the door as my heart pounded against my ribs. I told myself I had misunderstood. Grief was making her practical, that's all. She lived in the city. Of course, she couldn't keep a second house. It was logical. But it felt so cold. So final. A week later, a man in a sharp suit came to the door. He had a clipboard and a measuring tape. Evelyn greeted him with a warm, businesslike smile. She said, "This is Mr. Davies. He is an appraiser, to me. I want to get a sense of this property's value for insurance purposes." Mr. Davies moved into the house with shoes, the sound of click, click, click. He didn't look at the family photos on the mantel. He failed to notice the quilt our grandmother had made on the armchair. He just saw square footage and market value. I remained in the living room doorway, feeling like some intruder. That evening, I tried to talk to Evelyn. I discovered her in Mom's study. She was seated at Mom's former oak desk, sorting through a box. I said, "Evelyn," my voice sounding so small. "Are you considering selling the house today?" "That person." She didn't look up. "It's a possibility, Sarah. I have to be realistic. It's challenging to manage a property from afar." I made a gesture to the room, all the way through the lifetime of memories packed on the shelves. "What will happen to everything?" She said, "We will fix it. We will keep what is valuable and donate the rest. We cannot keep everything we are sentimental about." Finally, she looked at me coolly and appraisingly. "It's about time for you to go home. It's not healthy to stay here surrounded by all this. You need to move on." Move on. As though our life, our shared history, was something to tuck away as a dearly lost piece of clothing. The conversation was over. She had made that clear. When I entered the guest room, a chill ran down my spine. It wasn't just grief anymore. It was a suspicion. Something felt deeply, fundamentally wrong. My mother loved this house. She cherished her possessions for what they meant to her, not for how much they cost. It would have never been her wish that they be liquidated or given to strangers. The next few weeks were a quiet torture. Evelyn had teams of people coming through the house. Estate sale organizers. Real estate agents. They'd show me off, giving me that same blank, false smile. "This is my sister, Sarah. She's only assisting me with my affairs before she goes." I was an addendum to the story of my family's unraveling. I started to pack. I wandered through the house like a sleepwalker, picking up my few scattered belongings. My mother gifted me a small collection of porcelain birds throughout the years. My father's old reading glasses. I have read Pride and Prejudice so many times that the spine of my copy has broken. While I wrapped the birds in tissue paper one afternoon in my mother's bedroom, Evelyn was out meeting with a real estate agent. The house was quiet. In quietness, I missed my mum more than ever did. I sat on her bed and it groaned under my weight. The wafting scent of lavender and musty books lingered on the pillows. Her reading glasses, a crossword puzzle, and her Bible were sitting on her nightstand. The King James Version was old, with a leather cover worn smooth from years of use. My mom never went to church, but she wasn't a deeply religious person in any sense. But she did read her Bible nightly. She said it calmed her mind. She refers to it as her book of peace. I picked it up. The leather was soft and familiar in my hands. I don't know why I did it. I think I was searching for one last part of hers to hold on to. I let the book fall open in my lap. It opened to the Psalms, her favorite section. Inside the fragile pages of Psalm 23 was an envelope. The envelope appeared normal with no letters on it. My name wasn't on it. Evelyn's name wasn't on it. But my breath caught in my chest. My hands started to tremble. This was something hidden. Something meant to be found. My fingers fumbled as I worked the seal of the envelope. It felt wrong to me to open something so personal. But a stronger feeling came forward now, a need for an answer that clawed. The paper inside was thick, folded into thirds. It wasn't a letter. When I opened it, the formal legal language popped out at me. Last will and testament of Eleanor Hayes. I reread the words, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was another will. Mr. Abernathy had read the official one long before this one, which was dated only 6 months before the death. I scanned the page with my eyes and read with effort using my mind. Then I saw it. The clauses that would change everything. Below the typed words, to my beloved eldest daughter Evelyn Hayes, my mother had written in her own familiar, elegant script, I bequeath my collection of porcelain dinnerware and the sum of $25,000, with encouragement to use it to travel and make memories with her own family, which I know makes her happy. Source, read novelful. I stopped, my breath hitched in my throat. The dinnerware. $25,000. Not the entire estate. I forced myself to keep reading, my eyes flying to the following clause on the page. The will continued as follows. To my youngest beloved daughter Sarah Hayes, my steady girl, my heart girl, I leave the rest of my estate, including the house on 142 Willow Creek Lane and everything in it, and all savings and investments. I am not doing this because I like her, but because I know her heart very well. Evelyn has made a life of her own, but Sarah's heart is here in this house in this town. My heart's wish is that she may live comfortably and safely in the home she helped me keep, and never want for anything. Tears unexpectedly filled my eyes, burning and blurring the words. She had seen me. She had known. She hadn't erased me, she had provided for me. She had left me everything. But there was another page. At the bottom of the will, she had added a note in her own handwriting, which was witnessed and signed by her 2 best friends from her book club. My dearest Sarah, it began. If you are reading this, that means you have found it, just as I prayed you would. I made this second will and hid it here because of your sister's ambition, which made me fear for my life. I love Evelyn with all my heart. I am aware of her nature but not blind. She sees this house not as a home but as an asset. She measures love in dollars and cents. I worry that if this were my only will, she would find a way to contest it and drag you through painful and expensive legal procedures that would take away from what I hope is left for you. Her first will, the one that gives her everything, is a trial, a test of her character. I have given it to my lawyer, Mr. Abernathy, and asked him to treat it as my last will. But I rely on you, my constant quiet girl, to notice what others fail to see. I expect your sister's greed to make her show her true colors quickly, before you can even properly mourn. This house is yours, Sarah. This life is yours. But you will have to claim it. Evelyn will not give it up easily. Use this document. It is legally sound. My buddies Mary and Elizabeth are witnesses. They will say what I was thinking when I made the will. They know my heart. Do not be afraid. You have a strength in you that you do not yet see. For years you have quietly served others. Now you must serve yourself. Fight for what is rightfully yours. Fight for the peace I so desperately want for you. This is my last gift to you, my daughter. Not the house, not the money. The chance to find your own voice. With all my love. Mom. I wept while sitting on the bed, trembling, the papers in my hand. I cried for the mother who had seen me so clearly. I wept for the love I thought I had lost. But as the tears subsided, something else took their place. A slow burning anger. My mother had been right. Evelyn's grief was a performance. Her concern was a lie. She was working quickly and efficiently to destroy our family's past before the dust settled on our mother's grave. The will wasn't just a legal document. It was a battle plan. A final, loving instruction from my mother to stand up for yourself. I folded the papers carefully. My movements were deliberate. I put the will and the letter back in the envelope and put the envelope in the pocket of my cardigan. The weight of it against my heart was a comfort, an anchor. Evelyn was all energized and charged up when she came home. "It's all settled. I'm home," she declared, walking into the kitchen where I stood. "I have accepted the offer for House A. A wonderful family from the city. They're willing to pay cash and close in 2 weeks. Isn't that marvelous? We will not have to endure this for much longer." I looked at her. Really looked at her. I smiled when I saw her happy, greedy smile. There was no sadness for the home she was so eager to sell. Only the thrill of a successful transaction. I repeated her name quietly, but my tone was firm. I was surprised at how calm I sounded. "We need to talk." She waved a dismissive hand. "Can it wait, Sarah? I need to make so many calls." "No," I said. "It can't." Something in my tone made her pause. She turned to face me, her brow furrowing with impatience. "What is it?" I took a breath. "I'm not leaving the house." Her face went from impatient to incredulous. She let out a short, sharp laugh. "What are you talking about? Sarah, you can't stay here. The house is sold. I told you." "You can't sell it," I said. "It is not yours to sell." The smile vanished from her face completely. Her eyes narrowed. "What did you say?" "Of course it's mine." "You were at the lawyer's office. You heard the will." I gently said to her, "I heard a will." Her face went pale. It was a subtle shift, but I saw it. A flicker of fear in her eyes. "None other is the will, Sarah. Don't be ridiculous. Grief is making you delusional." "Is it?" I asked. I put my hand in my pocket, feeling the edges of the envelope and closing my fingers around it. I didn't show it to her. Not yet. My mother meant it to be a moment handled with care. "How about we give Mr. Abernathy a ring? And perhaps Mom's friends, Mary and Elizabeth. They may have some insights regarding what Mom wanted at the end." The fear in her eyes turned to pure, unadulterated rage. "You don't realize how much of a fool you're being," she said through clenched teeth. "You will regret this, Sarah. I promise you." "No, Evelyn," I said, and it was the first time in my life that I felt taller than her. "I believe this is the first time I know exactly what to do." The next morning, the house was a battlefield of silence. The air was thick between Evelyn and me. We walked around each other like opposing soldiers. The only way she communicated with me was by banging doors and the clattering of utensils in the sink. I, in turn, felt a strange calm settle over me. The fear was gone, replaced by a quiet resolve. My mother had given me a mission, and I would not fail her. I made the first call to Mary, my mother's dearest friend. Her voice was warm and kind, but I could hear it brace for yet another discussion about grief. After some small talk, I said, "Mary, I have to ask a question about Mom. It matters." I explained the first will to her, the one where Evelyn wanted to sell the house. Then I told her about the envelope in the Bible. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then Mary let out a slow, deep sigh. "Oh, Eleanor," she whispered. "She really did it." "You knew?" I asked, and my heart leapt. Mary commented, "Yes, I knew she was worried. We all were. Your mother saw how practical Evelyn is. She was worried that your sister might not respect the essence of her desires. She told me and Elizabeth she was making a special arrangement just in case. She said she was leaving her true legacy to the daughter who knew what legacy meant." Her voice gained strength. "Sarah, anything you require of me, you have it. Elizabeth will say the same. Your mother was of perfectly sound mind. She was aware of her activities." When I hung up the phone, I almost fell to my knees from the validation I felt. I wasn't delusional. I wasn't crazy. This was real. My next phone call was to Mr. Abernathy. His tone was businesslike, but he was annoyed when I told him I discovered a newer will. "Ms. Hayes," he said stiffly, "your mom was obvious with me. The document I have is her final testament. It's pretty unusual for someone to show up." "Yes, it most certainly has," I told her. "This document, handwritten after the one you hold, was witnessed by 2 of her friends, who will confirm her state of mind. I want to set up a meeting with you and my sister to present it." He sighed, a sound of pure bureaucratic frustration. "Very well. I can notice both of you tomorrow at 10. When I tell Evelyn about the meeting, she stares at me with a cold, frozen face. "You're making a terrible mistake," she said in barely a whisper. You will shatter this family over a mere fantasy. Evelyn, the only fantasy, I said, was yours thinking you could erase me. Mr. Abernathy's office was much chillier than it was at the first meeting. The air crackled with tension. Evelyn sat ramrod straight, refusing to look at me. I placed the envelope on the polished desk between us. Mr. I told Abernathy that I guessed I had found my mother's valid last will. He picked up the envelope with the tips of his fingers as if it could be infected. He read the will, his expression unreadable. He read my mother's handwritten note. He examined the witnesses' signatures. This is huge, unorthodox. He goes looking from the paper to me and then to Evelyn. It's a fraud, Evelyn snapped. She is of course upset and she forged it. Or maybe my mother wasn't in her right mind. She was on medication and a lot of it. The drug didn't get to her head and you know it, I said quietly. Mary and Elizabeth have a friend who will testify to this. They signed this. Mr. Abernathy leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen on the desk. This document does have the legal structure. Your mother's handwriting is consistent, and their presence gives legal credentials to the testimony. If this is real, it will cancel out the will I have on file. He looked at Evelyn. Ms. Hayes, the house must not be sold any further until the validity of this new will is established. Evelyn shot to her feet. This is absurd. I am her executor. I have already accepted an offer. I will be sued. Mr. Abernathy met her look with one of his own. That may be the least of your problems. If this will is proved to be valid and you have been acting contrary to it, for instance selling off a property that was not yours to sell, you could get into serious trouble. The color drained from Evelyn's face. I was seeing the cracks on her perfect facade for the first time. I saw the raw panic underneath. I caught sight of the deadly look in her eyes. You won't win this, Sarah, she growled. I will fight you. I will drag this through the courts for years. I will spend every last cent of my inheritance to prove you are a liar and a thief. When this is over, there will be nothing left of us. We won't be us anymore. Is that what you want? You could feel her words like a poisonous arrow fraying the strings of my heart. The quiet Sarah would have flinched in her peacekeeping role. She would give in, terrified of that very conflict, willing to sacrifice herself for a hope that would be false. But I was not the old Sarah. My mother's letter was a shield around my heart. Strive for what's rightfully yours, she had written. Find your own voice. I looked my sister directly in the eye. My voice was as calm and crystal clear as a winter morning when I spoke. Yes, Evelyn, I said. If that's what it takes. She stared at me, utterly speechless. She had expected me to crumble. She had always been able to make me crumble. But she was facing a stranger now. A gift from her mother. The one thing a woman could trust to allow her to hold her head high. The battle had barely begun, but at this moment, in the overwhelmed, angry silence of my sister's gaze, I knew I had already won the most important thing of all. Evelyn was true to her word. The weeks that followed descended into a quiet, grueling war of attrition. She hired a high-powered legal team from the city, and a flood of official-looking letters began arriving at my small apartment. They were filled with threatening legal jargon, demanding I retract my fraudulent claim and cease my tortious interference with the sale of the estate. They tried to paint me as an unstable, grieving sister, lashing out in a fit of jealousy. They deposed me for hours, their questions sharp and insinuating. Isn't it true, Ms. Hayes, that you were financially dependent on your mother? Weren't you resentful of your sister's success? Did you, in a moment of emotional distress, attempt to replicate your mother's handwriting? Through it all, I held on to my mother's words. I remained calm, answered truthfully, and refused to be baited into anger or tears. My lawyer, a kind, local man recommended by Mary, was steady and reassuring. They have nothing, Sarah, he told me after one particularly brutal session. They are throwing mud, hoping something will stick. But the truth is on our side. The most painful part was the way Evelyn tried to turn the family against me. She called our cousins our aunts and uncles, feeding them a carefully crafted story of my instability. Poor Sarah is not herself, she would say, her voice dripping with false concern. She's become obsessed with this fantasy that Mom left her everything. The doctors say it can happen with grief. We must be patient with her. Some of them believed her. I received phone calls urging me to let it go for the sake of family unity, to stop causing trouble and accept our mother's wishes. Each call was a fresh wound. These were the people who had watched me care for my mother for years, yet they were so quick to believe the dramatic, tearful performance of the daughter who had barely visited. But my mother had known her family as well as she had known her daughters. Her true allies, Mary and Elizabeth, were unshakable. They gave sworn affidavits. They testified with grace and clarity about Eleanor's sharp mind and her deep-seated worries about Evelyn's character. They described the afternoon she had them over for tea, how she had them read and sign the will, explaining her reasons with perfect lucidity. Eleanor loved both her girls, Elizabeth said in her deposition, her voice ringing with conviction. But she knew only one of them saw her house as a home. The turning point came not in a dramatic courtroom showdown, but in a quiet, dusty corner of the house on Willow Creek Lane. As part of the legal discovery process, Evelyn's lawyers had to allow my lawyer and me access to the property to examine our mother's belongings. Evelyn was there, her presence a thundercloud in every room. She followed me, her arms crossed, her eyes narrowed as if she expected me to pocket the silver. I ignored her, focusing instead on the task at hand. I was looking for something, though I wasn't sure what. Some piece of corroborating evidence. A diary entry, a letter, anything that would further prove my mother's intent. I spent hours in her study going through old boxes. Most of it was just the detritus of a long life. Old bank statements, receipts, decades-old greeting cards. Evelyn sat in the corner, sighing dramatically, tapping her foot with impatient rhythm. Finally, I came to a small locked metal box at the back of a closet. It was an old cash box, the kind my mother used to keep important documents in. "What's that?" Evelyn asked sharply. "I don't know," I said. "It's locked." "Well, I don't have a key," she snapped. "It's probably just old junk." But I remembered seeing that key. It was a small brass key that my mother used to keep on a ribbon, tucked away in her sewing box. I went to the living room, my heart starting to beat a little faster. The sewing box was still on the shelf by the fireplace. I opened it. The familiar scent of thread and old fabric filled the air. And there, tucked beneath a tangle of ribbons, was the key. I returned to the study and inserted the key into the lock. It turned with a satisfying click. I lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, were several stacks of letters tied with silk ribbons and a small leather-bound book. A ledger. I opened the ledger. The first page was titled, in my mother's neat script, "Loans to Evelyn." My blood ran cold. I started to read. For over 15 years, my mother had been giving Evelyn money. Not gifts. Loans. And she had meticulously documented every single one. $10,000 for a down payment on her first house. $5,000 for a car. $20,000 to help start her husband's business. Another $15,000 to pay for a lavish kitchen renovation. The dates, the amounts, the reasons, it was all there. And at the bottom of each page, my mother had made a small, heartbreaking note. Promise to repay starting January 1st. Promise to repay after bonus. The promises were never kept. The grand total at the bottom of the last page was staggering. Evelyn owed our mother over $150,000. But it was the letters that destroyed me. They were from Evelyn. Pleading, desperate letters from the early years of her marriage. "Mom will be ruined if we can't get this loan. I swear I'll pay you back every cent." Followed by more recent ones, her tone shifting from pleading to demanding. "Robert and I feel that as a parent, it's your duty to help us maintain the lifestyle you raised me to expect. We see this not as a loan, but as an advance on my inheritance." An advance on her inheritance. She had been systematically draining our mother's savings for years, reframing it in her mind as money that was already hers. The $25,000 Mom had left her in the real will wasn't a gift. It was a final generous accounting, likely far less than what she had already taken. I closed the ledger, my hands shaking with a fury so cold and pure it felt like ice in my veins. This wasn't just about a house. This was about a lifetime of manipulation and greed. I stood up and turned to face my sister. I held up the ledger. "What is this, Evelyn?" She looked at the book, and for the second time since this began, her mask of composure shattered. She lunged for it, her face twisted with primal panic. "Give me that. That's private." I held it out of her reach. "It's a record, isn't it? A record of every penny you took from her. A record of all your broken promises." I opened it and read one of her own lines aloud. Asterisk an advance on my inheritance star dot. Is that what you called it? She stared at me, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She was cornered. There were no more lies to tell, no more performances to give. There was only the ugly, documented truth. You don't understand, she whispered, her voice cracking. We had expenses. We had a certain life to maintain. And Mom was the bank, I finished for her. The bank you planned to rob one last time. I turned to my lawyer, who had been watching the entire exchange in silence. I believe, I said, my voice ringing with a newfound authority, that we have everything we need. The ledger's discovery triggered the avalanche. Evelyn's letters and evidence of her documented loans ruined her case. After acting aggressively and condescendingly, her lawyers became very eager to settle this case. Evelyn could not afford the humiliation of having the ledger and its contents revealed in open court. A wealthy, successful daughter is robbing her elderly mother's savings. This is the story it told on the news. The report is all set to destroy the carefully crafted reputation of the daughter in her community. We saw each other for the last time in Mr. Abernathy's office. This time there was no fight in Evelyn's eyes. She was defeated, slumping down with a pale, drawn face. Her lawyer spoke first. My client is going to withdraw from contesting the second will, he said flatly. She will acknowledge Ms. Sarah Hayes as the single beneficiary of the estate, on the premise that the contents of the personal financial ledger remain private. My lawyer looked at me. It was my decision. I thought about the public humiliation Evelyn deserved. I considered revealing the truth about who she really was to everyone. But I looked at my sister, the hollowed-out woman across from me, and I felt not triumph but a terrible, terrible sadness. Evelyn's mother intended to punish her daughter, not kill her, when she infused her drink with poison. She wanted me to discover my voice, not to use it as a weapon against others. I agree, I said quietly. On one condition. All attention shifted to me. I want a full and written apology from my sister. Not for the court. For me. I want her to admit to what she did. Evelyn looked up with a flicker of her old pride in her eyes. But it died just as quickly. She nodded, a single jerky movement. And so it was over. The paperwork was signed. The home on Willow Creek Lane was mine, the one my mother so painfully wished I could have. The first thing I did was to call the real estate agent and tell them that the sale was off. I felt such immense relief that it was almost physical. It was like a weight was lifted from my chest. Evelyn learnt a valuable lesson for which there was no public consequence. Our family that was so divided came to know the truth quickly. I didn't have to say a word. Mary and Elizabeth, free from the stranglehold of the case, communicated with our cousins. They narrated Eleanor's fear story with the secret will, the love, foresight behind the act of her last wish. They didn't say anything about the ledger. I had told them not to, but they didn't need to. Evelyn's efforts to sabotage our mother's true intentions was quite damaging. The phone calls I received now were different. They were apologetic, ashamed. I'm sorry, I didn't believe you, Sarah, one of my cousins said. We should have known better. We all observed your affection for Aunt Eleanor. The family did not shun Evelyn by publicly humiliating her. Rather, they quietly rejected her. She finds herself no longer in the life of the party as before. Her calls went unanswered. Her invitations were politely declined. The family's relationship depends on power and assets. When she loses power, she discovers she has nothing. She had issues with her husband, Robert, as well. It was only later that I learned he had no idea how many loans she had taken from my mother. His wife got the idea to work for Mrs. Johnston after finding out that Mr. Johnston had tricked his father and then gotten something else. The perfect life they had curated started to come undone from within. Around a week or so after everything was sorted, a letter came for me. It was from Evelyn. Sarah, it began. I am writing this as I agreed to. I am sorry for the pain I caused you. I was wrong to challenge Mom's will. I now realize that I acted from a place of entitlement and greed. Throughout my life I have taken a lot for granted. In particular, I have taken you and Mom for granted. I'm sorry it's come to this. It was an apology of a sort. The words were there. But it felt hollow, like a confession given under duress. The reply was an I reply, justification presented as regret. No one really understood the reason for the betrayal of her heart. She was sorry she had gotten caught. She was sorry she had lost. But was she sorry for what she had done? I wasn't sure. I folded the letter and put it away. It didn't matter. Her apology was for her, not for me. My healing would have to come from somewhere else. I moved back into the house on Willow Creek Lane. Initially, it felt ghostly, not because of my mom but because of the ghost of the battle that had taken place within it. But slowly I began to make it my own again. I put my mother's china back in the cabinets. I swapped the cold, contemporary paintings by Evelyn for my mother's comforting landscapes. I used to spend my days pulling weeds in the garden. As I pulled out every single weed, it felt like I was pulling out a piece of bitterness from my heart. One day I stood before the old Bible, which I now kept on my very own bedside table. I opened it to Psalm 23. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." My mother knew that I would be fine. Yet she had known that I would have to be the one to do it. She can't just give me the house, she has to give me the strength to take it. My mother left me an inheritance, but it wasn't money. It was a lesson. She had left me myself. She had demonstrated a strength that I did not know I possessed, nor a voice that I never knew I had. It was more precious than a house, more priceless than any amount. This gift. I chose to lead a life free from fear, and that assurance changed everything. The tranquility that she had hoped for me. I was finally starting to discover it. It was 5 years ago that I discovered that letter in my mom's Bible. The residence situated at Willow Creek Lane is no longer a war zone but a haven. The sunlight dancing in the window is not dust dancing. It is particles of tiny golden peace. I've had a lot of fun hosting book club meetings with my mother's old friends, Mary and Elizabeth, and small dinner parties with the family who came back to me. Never heard from Evelyn again after that letter. Her apology was the last word she ever spoke to me. I listened to whispers about her life. A quiet divorce. A smaller house in a less fashionable part of the city. A life stripped of its grandiosity. I don't take any pleasure in her downfall. I feel a low and quiet sense of sadness for the sister I had but lost. Not death, but a hunger that we cannot satiate. My mother taught me that there are things more important than money and property. Dignity, integrity, peace of mind. For a long time I believed that being the good girl, the quiet one, meant taking the pain without a word. Thought that was love. But my mother, wise as always, taught me one last important lesson. She taught me that true love isn't about silent sacrifice. It's about having the courage to honor your own worth. It is sometimes most loving to tell yourself, enough is enough, and to actually stand up in a way that shows it. The worn metal box still holds the ledger and Evelyn's letters. I don't look at them. I don't need to. The proof of my victory isn't in those papers. As I water my mother's roses, I feel the joy in silence. It's in the steady, peaceful rhythm of my own heart. Knowing that I am living the life my mother wishes for me, dignified, secure, and quietly resilient, makes me happy. A family is complex with love, jealousy, sacrifice, and sometimes a betrayal of unimaginable proportions. It is often said that blood is thicker than water. We are told to forgive and forget. What happens when the one person who's meant to love you the most is the one trying to take everything away from you? I often wonder about that. Would you have done what I did? Please tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, please subscribe to similar stories from real life every week. Your support allows these voices to be heard.